Next up, at UFC 312, we have the main event of the evening. We have a rematch between Dricus Du Plessis and Sean Strickland. Again, a rematch. The first fight was pretty close, at least on paper. On paper, Sean Strickland outstruck Dricus, but Dricus had 6 takedowns in that fight. On paper, it was a pretty striker versus grappler matchup, but in reality, it was a war. I mean, these guys were both moving forward. Dricus set a pace, set the pressure, was working in takedowns really, really well, sticking with the striking game plan, and Sean was doing what Sean does, just pumping. It was a fun fight. It was a controversial fight, and what I pointed out in my quick picks, this was the fight that got everybody jumping down John Anik's throat. If you remember, John Anik said, I thought Dricus won that fight. And all the Sean Strickland fans came out of the woodwork and they're like, you suck, you're a loser, we hate you. And then John Anik was like, boy, MMA fans can be the worst. And then they pile drove on him again, and then he had to apologize. And he didn't have to apologize, but he was like, all right, maybe I shouldn't be pissing off the fans. Sean Strickland is a captivating person. For some reason, he has ride or die fans who will ride with him to dawn. I personally think Dricus won that first fight, but I, as you all have pointed out, am way too biased when it comes to takedowns. So I thought the 6 takedowns mattered more than the 40 extra strikes landed. But we got Dricus. We all know who Dricus is at this point. He's 5 more chromosomes deep than he needs to be. He comes forward with that chromosome strength, drags you to the ground, bombs overhands. The funniest part about Dricus is his technique is not clean, it's not precise, and he knows that, and he literally laughs at people who pretend that he's technical. There's one video I saw where some sort of coach, I don't think it was anybody famous, was looking at his tape, and he's like, Dricus does a great job setting this up with this. And he was just watching that laughing. He's like, I didn't do any of that shit. I just moved forward and threw hands, and I got what I got. And that is how Dricus fights. There is no figuring this guy out because he just charges forward. And he's taking on Sean Strickland, who we all know is a meat and potatoes, a blue-collar kind of striker. There's 1s and 2s, and he's just standing there. His hands are here. He brings that leg up to block kicks and do whatever, and he just pumps, and he just pumps. He literally looks like a rock'em sock'em robot because he doesn't turn his shoulders. It's just punch, 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 punch. But he's got insane volume. He can do it for a month and a half, and it works for him. He's a good grappler. He's got good MMA skills. He's been in this game long enough, but for the most part, it's 1s and 2s down the middle the entire time. I think the first fight was a close fight. I think it was certainly debatable who won it, but I was leaning towards Dricus. Obviously, lessons are learned. You could argue Sean Strickland felt the pressure, felt the takedowns, and now he's prepared. Or you can argue, based off of his public pleas with Dricus, to say, hey, let's not wrestle, let's fight like men, that he's worried about the takedowns, and he felt that pressure, and Dricus is going to do more of the same. I am going to go with Dricus here. I think he is going to do more of the same. I think he's going to come forward, tons of striking volume, tons of takedowns, tons of striking volume, tons of takedowns. I will say, I thought he looked better versus Sean Strickland than he did versus Israel Adesanya. He looked a little tired in the Izzy fight, and he kept coming forward, ultimately got the takedown, got the finish, but he looked a little tired, looked a little sucked out in that fight, and in the Sean Strickland fight, it looked like he could do that for a month, but the guy just finds ways to win. I think he does it again. What do you think, Jakey boy?
Yeah, I mean, DDP, I've had my share of history with DDP. I said he sucked for a long time, and then this fight came around, and I picked him against Sean Strickland, and then I made him my lock of the week versus Izzy because I learned that this guy is just, I mean, sometimes he is just, sometimes like I said in the Taporia breakdown to start this card, sometimes you don't need to be the better fighter. You just need to be the more relentless fighter, the cardio fighter, the one that just kind of wants it more, the more durable guy, right? Durability is a big thing, and DDP has shown that he's a pretty durable guy. So going into this matchup, I was seeing the minus 200. I'm like, yeah, DDP is going to win this. I mean, he won the first time. He finished Izzy. He's going to come in this rematch and do what he needs to do. And then I rewatched that first fight. And let me say first off, too, because the Sean Strickland people always bring up the picture of look at their faces afterwards, look at DDP's face afterwards. If you listen to DDP talk about the damage that was done to his face, he talked about how the fight started, Sean was landing the jab, and DDP was feeling the jab, but was realizing that jab doesn't fucking hurt. It doesn't hurt. So I'm just going to keep walking through the jab because it doesn't hurt me. I don't feel any pain. I'm not getting my head snapped back. It doesn't hurt. I'm going to keep walking through the jab and do what I need to do with that forward kind of wild, reckless pressure, whatever. Then the second round ended, and he said to himself, oh, fuck, I can't see out of my eye now. Now I need to change things up. Yeah, the jab's not hurting me, but now it's a big issue because I can barely see out of my fucking eye. And he did change it, right? He started getting a little more head movement. He started mixing in the wrestling, mixing in the grappling. I rewatched that fight, and I picked DDP in that fight, and I thought he won that fight. I had him as my lock of the week versus Izzy. And this one, I thought I was going to pick DDP. I rewatched that fight, and I came away with thinking to myself, DDP had almost everything go his way that fight that he needed to go his way, right? He got to the point where his eye was almost destroyed, but it wasn't. He was able to adjust, get the timely takedowns that he needed, and as the fight went on, as you mentioned, he was out cardioing a guy who is known as the cardio guy, the guy that's like walking the guy down. You could see, I think it was in the third or fourth round, like Eric Nixon was kind of being like, Sean, now's the time. Now it's time to, and you never really have to be that with Sean. Sean is usually that guy that he's going to be on people. So when I rewatched that fight, I was like, I see areas where Sean could improve, right? If he's able to defend the takedowns, if he's able to match the pressure a little bit, right? Keep that jab out there and keep landing that jab. And I was watching from the DDP perspective, I was like, man, if he doesn't get a couple of these takedowns, he loses. If he eats a few of more of those jabs, he loses. And he still was able to make all those adjustments, and people still think that he lost that fight. So, this is probably a surprise to some people, most people, whatever it is, I'm taking the underdog here. I think that if you look at that first fight, Sean can make more adjustments than DDP can. And for that reason, I think Sean's going to be able to pull this out. I think he's going to be able to defend those takedowns. And if DDP is not getting the takedowns, I don't think he's walking down Sean the way he was for 5 rounds. And if he is, you've already seen he's had trouble with that jab. And I think Sean is able to stay on the gas a little bit more. I think he knows what to expect. I think he was a little bit surprised at the durability and the cardio of DDP. He's going to be a little bit more comfortable, going to be a little bit more ready. And honestly, Eric Nixon is a pretty good game planning coach. And I think that they're going to have something a little bit ready. And it could be, maybe wrestle a wrestler. We talked about it with the Wei Lee situation. Sean Strickland's got wrestling and grappling as well. We've seen DDP he's been taken down plenty in his UFC career as well. So you might see Sean Strickland push into, I don't expect that, right? Because that's Sean Strickland being like, he's been very anti-wrestling or whatever. But when it comes to winning the belt, he already lost this guy, and maybe he's going to wrestle a wrestler. I wouldn't count on that, but even if he doesn't, I think he's going to defend the takedowns this time and kind of point his way to winning that belt back. So a little bit of a surprise. I'm not betting it. I don't love it that much. I kind of like to not bet value anymore. I know a lot of people like to bet value. I think there probably is a value play here with Sean Strickland because the fight was so close in the beginning. Yeah. Or in the first fight as well, and you're getting a 2-1 dog. I like to just kind of bet who I think is going to win. And although I do think Sean can win, it's a close one. He is going to be my pick, but I still respect DDP with his durability and his abilities as a fighter. So Sean is my pick. Haven't bet it, but hopefully it's a good fight.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's not a good fight. Although Sean Strickland fights can go that way sometimes, but Dricus won't. 2 points. One, Sean Strickland had his belt. He was defending the belt against Dricus. Right. Maybe that prevented him from taking chances and doing things he could have done because you don't want to lose the belt. He finally earned this thing that a lot of people think he shouldn't have even earned.
Yeah,
and then he just didn't want to give it.
You're fighting not to lose instead of fighting to win.
Yeah, so maybe this is a very different fight because Sean Strickland is fighting for the belt, and we saw how good he looked against Izzy when he fought for the belt. Far more aggressive in that than the Dricus fight. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, I saw an interview with Eric Nixon, and he said when Sean, and this, what spawned this, as you said, maybe Sean wrestles. Sean was supposed to wrestle Poatan. That was the game plan, wrestle Alex Pereira. Right. They had a game plan. It was set. He specifically said, I want you to strike with him for like 30, 45 seconds. And as soon as he's comfortable striking with you, shoot a takedown. And he said before he went in the cage, Sean said, all right, tell me when we're halfway through the round. And Eric's like, no, we're not waiting until halfway. And then ultimately what happened. The reason I brought that up is He does know how to wrestle. They game plan in that gym. He can wrestle. Maybe he'll wrestle the wrestler. I doubt it. Because Alex Bejeda is different than Dricus.
And it's not even about winning with the wrestling. It's about just changing things, making Dricus think about,
something other than
if I'm bringing in reckless pressure, there could be a level change here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, literally the only thing Dricus has to worry about is a 1-2. That's it. That's the only thing that comes from Sean. 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. But it will be interesting if contender Sean fights a little differently than champ Sean. I think this is a great main event. A lot of people are like, I think this is a great main event. Who else? Hamzat? Whoever Hamzat fights, Hamzat's going to be the champ no matter what. So let's get a couple of these fun ones out of the way and then throw Hamzat in there and he'll just take whoever down and submit him and that's the end of it. Although I do think, completely off topic, I think DDP has a better chance against Hamzat than Sean Strickland does. Because he is fucking crazy. Just run at him. Come forward.
I don't know. I actually, when I watched that Chimaev and Usman fight, after that fight, I bet a future bet for Sean Strickland against Chimaev because I was like, oh, all you got to do is fucking survive the first round. And then it's Chimaev literally is just a normal, after the first round, he's just another dude.
Yeah.
So I was like, Sean Strickland can, Sean Strickland could probably just survive a round and then, that's all you got to do. And then it's, if Sean Strickland turns up the pace, because that's what Usman lost that fight because he just didn't do enough after that first round. It's like you get out of the first round with Sean Strickland in front of you and you're a gassed fighter. It's kind of bad news.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting fight. I'm picking Dricus, which is why this comment makes Andrew clearly lost collage funds. That's not how you spell college. Collage funds betting on Strico. Listen to yourself. I've never bet on Sean Strickland. I don't pick Sean Strickland. I pick Dricus. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's wild because I thought I was pretty clear here. Jakey Boy and I are split on this fight as well. If you are going to put one of these gentlemen in DraftKings Fantasy, it's got to be Dricus, $8,600. The takedowns, that pressure. I got to see what Sean scored in the loss in their last fight. Add 30 to that. Maybe he'll be worth it. He is pretty affordable here at $7,600, but it's going to be strikes only. I don't see wrestling coming out of the Sean Strickland camp. If you want to unlock all the picks, the bets, the tools, and everything else, you can do so now. WeWantPicks.com. Everything you could ever want or need is right there, ready to go, waiting for you. We have a $1.99 super chat from Double A. It says, I haven't caught you guys live in a minute. Love ya. We appreciate you, and we're excited to be back. Well, I'm excited, and speak for everybody. Excited to be back into the swing of things with fights every single weekend. The choppy nonsense, as much as, this is a lot of fucking work, and I don't have Saturday nights or Sunday mornings or Tuesday night. But I do, when there's no fights, there's a piece of me. I'm like, what do I do with myself? So I'm glad fights are back, so we appreciate you being here. Then we have a $4.99 from PS and VR Pro. Hamzat all the way. I agree, but they don't need to rush him into it. Any last words for the people before I hit the promo?
Nope.
Well, download the app. App's free. App Store. Search We Want Picks. In the app, you'll have full access to everything, including the fight simulator. This is literally brand new. We put this out 4 days ago. It simulates fights using a bunch of inputs. Some of the inputs are biometrics, striking stats, grappling stats, fight history, their DraftKings fantasy historical scoring, their salaries, odds. It uses all these different data points, simulates the fights 100,000 times, and then spits out the outputs. You then use those outputs. It'll build DraftKings lineups for you. You can use them for betting purposes, whatever you want. You also have access to the data analyzer. This is a full tool set of data. You can stack filters. You can say, I want to see how many strikes Sean Strickland lands in decision losses. And then you can take that information and you can go to your favorite sportsbook and grab that prop bet. You also have full tape study. This will bring up every single one of their fights in the UFC. There's a little dot. You click on the dot and you can see their full fight history and everything else and actually watch the fights. You'll have access to the line movement tracker. This will give you opening odds, current odds, win probability, line movement for every fighter on every card. You'll have access to the Prop Hunter, curated set of data specifically designed to help you find prop bets, and access to all the people here at We Want Picks. It's not just me and Jacob. We're the most handsome, but we've got Artem giving you picks, bets, and breakdowns. We've got BetSam giving you picks, bets, and breakdowns. We have a robot using artificial intelligence to give you picks, bets, and breakdowns. And if you want 50, we'll send you 50. WeWantPicks.com/bet. Sign up, make a deposit. We'll send you $50 as a thank you. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. I'm clicking it.